各位观众朋友，大家好，欢迎收看我们美南 JxJ 论坛。How you doing, Jim?
Good afternoon, Jimmy. Doing very well. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Jim Norway 跟我 Jimmy 马健我们今天有很多这个劲爆的话题想要谈论，但是时间不够，所以我们可能继续下一集。So today we have a lot of current events that we really want to discuss because it is very interesting on your take, that your insight on this. So we might have to continue the conversation on to the next episode. But first off, it's amazing because to me, how does President Trump get nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? What is your take on it? 为什么川普总统会被提名这个诺贝尔和平奖的这个得主今年？为什么？他是被提名而已。Jim?
Well, there's two big things I don't know on this. The first thing I don't know is what the criteria are to win the Nobel Peace Prize. So there's no way that I can compare President Trump's record against how they nominate. And secondly, I've not heard anyone explain to me why he was nominated. In other words, what did the person who nominated him or the group think about that? Now, would he be worthy of that, in my opinion, or someone else's? Probably so, because we in the United States believe peace through strength. And President Trump has done an admirable job at rebuilding both our economy, leave aside the COVID problem.
We can't leave that aside, though, Jim. That is a massive issue.
But the COVID has destroyed the economies of virtually everyone worldwide. And so.
But every other country recovered except for us because he did not control it. He admitted that he downplayed the problems of COVID. He admitted it finally.
Yes. But the United States is in the process of bouncing back quite strongly now.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll see. It's still very early, and I think we all hope, not only because we as Americans want to enjoy the benefits of the economy, but because the U.S. economy tends to pull along the rest of the world.
The 200,000 people that perished, they're not coming back. They're gone.
No, that's.
And the protests, the racial division. Yeah, you know what? He could win the world Nobel Peace Prize because I don't know what he did. Maybe go to North Korea and maybe roll up China and Taiwan. Well, Middle East, yes. Finally, we talked about Lebanon, Palestinians. But you know what? Yeah. He for sure cannot win the Peace Prize for United States peace. He ain't gonna win that. He could win the World Peace Prize. But come on, let's be realistic. He's not gonna win it.
I really don't understand it. I really don't.
He's nominated, but he's not gonna win it.
Yeah.
But what you made an interesting point earlier is that President Obama was nominated and won it, but he even admitted that he doesn't deserve it.
He didn't know why it was awarded to him. He was glad to accept it, did not want to give it back, but there we go. So
makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah. 所以我们刚刚讲的很好笑，我们说这个川普被提名诺贝尔这个和平奖，但是我们 Jim 就说哇，这个川普他应该的因为他美国的经济好，除了这个川普病毒，我不是讲说了 COVID 病毒，但是我刚刚就立刻就回答说，但是经济假象最主要就是病毒，而且死了20万人，经济要是回转，按照这个川普的讲法，经济回转，但是走掉的20万人命是回不来的。然后他觉得说这个世界上有很多和平，他如果要赢这个世界和平奖，他让中国跟台湾这个武力的这个对抗升级，跟北韩打了那么多交道，最后并没有得到任何的目的，至少中东有一点进展。所以我说他可以赢国际的和平奖，但是在美国本土内部的和平奖他是不可能会赢的。I kind of said it quickly, that maybe he could win the world one, but not the domestic one. So I think it's funny, but what I think doesn't matter because as Asians, we truly are. What you brought up earlier, Jim, when we were discussing was very, very unique. What you said is that Asian Americans are caught in the middle. Explain to our audience, what do you mean by that? 刚刚 Jim 跟我提到很重要一点，他说亚裔美国人、华裔美国人在美国会夹在中间， 为什么夹在中间？我们请Jim帮我们解释。
One of the reasons, Jimmy, that I am so favorable to immigration in the United States is because I learned
legal immigration. I'm sorry, legal immigration.
Legal immigration, very important distinction, and I appreciate your pointing that out. Very, very important. Okay, why I believe so much in the American immigration experience, legal immigration, is because I learned so much from my friends from all around the world. And one of the things that I have noticed for people from most areas of the world, including especially Asians, is that they think differently than people who have grown up in America. And here's the distinction. We in America do not trust the government. That is why we have the Bill of Rights attached to the Constitution, because the founding fathers knew the government was not capable of earning trust over a very long period of time. The Bill of Rights and all the amendments to the Constitution protect the people from the government because we don't trust it. When I look at my Asian friends, the people who live in Asia, they almost all totally trust the government for social reasons, for historical reasons, for all those other reasons. The interesting dilemma that's created, and you pointed it out, when people from Asia move to the United States and become Asian Americans, they are caught in the middle. Do we trust the American government? Do we trust the government of our homeland? Or do we not? And it's not always all or nothing. Do I trust the government totally, or am I totally suspicious of the government? No. There's always many gradations in between. But you know me now well enough, Jimmy, and I hope your audience is getting to know us both better all the time. When governments say things, or when the media presents things that they think the government has said, I am naturally suspicious. I am naturally curious to find out what is behind it all, and I'm naturally patient to want to wait to see how things play out rather than rushing to an immediate judgment. Sometimes time pressures mean you have to make judgments, however. Okay, you don't always have the luxury of time. Damage can occur if you don't move quickly. So there we are. But I always find it interesting to have discussions with people like yourself about what happens when people move and when people get together.
I'm going to translate very quickly so that they know, our audience know what you say, because it's very important that we understand. Coming from you also, but you don't represent the majority of the population, though, because you're well-traveled.
I think that is also true, Jim.
You're well-traveled, and you keep an open mind. You and I actually agree on many different things. It doesn't seem like it. You are more progressive for some things than I am, and I could be more conservative for some issues. Mm-hmm. It might seem that we're at opposite end, but we're not. Mm-mm. There's so many issues because we vote by, we support issues or look at the news, not by just political party. I don't know about you, I don't. It's about the candidate and their issues and what they support, right? We all have different things that appeal to us. So 刚刚 Jim 讲的说
，translate,
yeah， 他说的这个很重要。他说为什么亚裔，尤其是华人来到了美国夹在中间？因为在亚洲国家，我们都很听话，我们都相信政府。然后来了美国以后，在美国的话，美国人是不相信政府，是要去移植政府的决策，或是这些新闻要自己做决定。但是我要回他，就是说他了解到，在某些国家，不管是民主的，所谓的民主，在亚洲民主国家，或不是民主的，你移不移植是没有用的，因为民主也可以专制，或是如果是在新加坡，或是在像日本、韩国那种集权的国家，你就算是，或是在台湾，就算是移植，那又怎么样呢？你移植也没有用，所以他们觉得不是说他们不愿意移植，他们没有选择。 知道在美国，我们会一直去，我们在中学跟高中都有上过 government class， 上了公民课，知道我们公民的权利在哪里。而且美国的媒体很发达、很自由，所以可以讲，而且有两党制衡。So I was telling our audience, I love that you brought it up, but I could answer a little bit for our Asian Americans that the countries they came from is not that I don't believe that they trust the government, they obey it. It's because they come from countries that we don't need to talk about China because we know there's no say. But even the so-called democracies like Taiwan or Singapore, democracies could be dictatorships still, totalitarian. They can be.
They can.
Hitler was elected in a free election. But in Singapore, Taiwan, or even Korea, Japan, where there's where the wealth is concentrated, controlled by the Taiwan, by the big financial groups, families. The people, it's not that Asians we don't want to question this. There's no point because they feel like there's no change and their voice is not heard. And media is one-sided. In the United States, we have two-party system where it's balanced. It always goes around, right? There's back and forth. So there's a balance. But in the countries they came from, they don't. So that answers why a lot of times it seems like they obey, or a lot of times it's the refugees, or they came from somewhere where it's not economically advanced, where they come to this country where the first thing is to survive, right? Provide for your family, survive, make an earning. There's no time to worry about government when I cannot even feed my kids, you know? So it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to question the government. It's a privilege to be able to not trust the government.
Yes, it is. And take some of the things you just said in response. The U.S. has freedom of opportunity. In other words, back in many Asian cultures, it matters who your family is. It matters your family's background, your stature. It matters, you used the word earlier, the caste system. In the United States, that does matter a little bit. But what really matters is what we call a meritocracy, your own ability. You have freedom of opportunity to succeed and provide your own future. And what that means is you have a lot of self-imposed responsibility to take care of yourself and to take care of your family. And that freedom allows you that ability that you just mentioned to be skeptical of things because you have to find your own way.
You know, I keep restating the fact that we, as a democracy, works in the United States because over 200 years of trial and error, bloodshed, freedom is not free. Voting is a privilege, not a right. You know, I mean, even one generation ago, before the civil rights movement, I couldn't sit here and talk to you. I couldn't vote. Our folk, the people before us, had to go in the streets for women to have the right, for minorities to have the right. I can't even immigrate to this country one generation ago. But all those came through peaceful protests, like Dr. Martin Luther King said. So we have to ensure that this will continue. Now, 我跟观众讲一下，我刚刚说我们能够在这里移植政府，我们能够投票。美国这个民主国家能够适用，所以美国经历了很多流血、很多冲突、很多这个尝试过失败跟成功，才能走到今天。上一代，我就算是一个 generation 之前，就是我的上一代，我们都不可能跟 Jim 坐在这里聊天，因为60年前，1960、1970年之前，华人是很少能够移民来这里，然后我们也不可能有共同的教育的这个水准，我们也不可能在电视上，因为那时候还是很封闭的，也不过是一代之前。但是我们能够争取到这些权利，是因为我们的当初的这个民权人士能够上去抗议，去要求。我说过了，在美国会叫的鸟才会有虫吃，在亚洲不是这样子的。So I said in the U.S. we have a saying, the squeaky wheel gets cleaned. Okay? Early birds get the worm. In Asia, it's put your head down, shut up and work in the uniform, you know, like Japan or China. Very different culture. So it applies to politics too. Jim, you know, the situation has not really gotten better. Every time I tape with you when we talk about current events, it's very stressful because I told you that you feel helpless, you feel like there's a lot of hate, a lot of division. Maybe you don't feel that way, but I have friends that no matter what spectrum they're on, whether they're on the right or on the left, because most of us are in the middle, we're all moderates, I would say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I said, there's things we that I might be more progressive, more conservative, and you're more progressive on. It's just, okay, how do I explain this? What I'm trying to get to is, what's going on right now is a snapshot, a short period of unrest. This is not how this country's foundation is built. We shall overcome this, but don't let this tear us apart in the short term.
Yes, I agree with you, and it's terribly unfortunate. The way I think about this myself is, I don't think America is broken at all. I think our political system is broken.
Agree completely. 100%.
And the political system no longer represents the people. And that's a very difficult thing for people in the United States to admit about democracy, that the party system, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, have actually colluded to work together and to work with the media against the interests of the overall population. And there is brewing across the country a large group in the political middle that says we're not going to tolerate this much anymore. And that's why this election is going to be so important. I don't think we're going to heal each other with this election, but whatever happens with this election, whoever wins, whether the presidential election, the Senate, the House of Representatives, the state legislatures, there is going to be a continual tumultuous activity while we work through this, because no one is satisfied. No one.
Well, no one will ever be satisfied. You cannot appeal to them. Like you said, the silent majority, right? In a true democracy, the minority follows the majority on issues and on elections. But like I said, the pendulum would swing back to the middle.
It always overextends.
Yeah, we don't want to go too far, though. I don't want. Let's be frank. This current president is just like Hillary, right? Creates so much division. Mm-hmm. It unites the opposition. It really does. Mm-hmm. The Republican Party, I've said many years that they have better candidates. They have somebody that's more established, more moderate. Mm-hmm. You know, that is not him. Anybody but him. That's what I'm saying. Because we want to keep a balance. And same thing with the Democratic Party, right? They learned a lesson. They put someone like Hillary out there, whether it's fair or not, what happened and what the accusations were. She's somebody that galvanized the opposition, and this is what creates this mess. We can, you know, or someone like Bernie, right? We have to have someone that is now, but they both collude. Yes, I agree. The system has entrenched. It's hard to have a third or fourth party or independent candidate come out that is not owned by the lobbyists, that is not owned by the corporations. Because the problem with our country is run by money now, is run by donors and by the billionaires instead of by the people. Because you can buy votes by having a bigger campaign fund, by influencing, by controlling media, you know, by making it. Instead of reporting news, they're making news. Mm-hmm. They're inventing news, manufacturing news.
Yeah, the media has become news all by itself, and they all talk with each other.
Jim, you already know my stance, but what really hurts me this week is, these are not allegations anymore, is multiple people coming out saying Trump, what he said about the military. That hits a nerve with me, because both my grandfathers fought in World War II with the United States against imperialist Japan. Mm-hmm. Our family was torn apart by communists, torn apart by the war. Yeah. Where my dad couldn't see her sisters for 50 years. Mm-hmm. My grandfather never saw his kids again. 50 years separated because China was closed. We know the terrorists and horrors of war, and we honor the soldiers. And being American also means that we appreciate our vets. I have a family member that just retired from the Navy. I myself was not active. I should have, but I was in ROTC for 4 years. In this country, we respect our veterans. We honor them. What he said is very hurtful. And this is not allegations anymore. This is multiple sources confirming. This is not about politics. This is from someone that dodged the draft, that has said on record multiple times, What he said about McCain was a huge warning sign. I have much respect for Senator John McCain. May God bless his soul. I mean, it doesn't matter if he's Republican or Democrat. You're a vet. You gave for this country. So even if Trump believes it, for him to say it out, like I don't understand what his thought process. I mean, how could someone be this narcissistic and sociopathic? If he wants to win this election, why would he say these things? I don't get it. I don't.
I can't explain that either. Sometimes it's much better to think before you speak rather than speak before you think.
It just creates more hate and division.
Well, and there's no reason, because Trump is running. One of his biggest support bases is the military, and the fact that he has rebuilt military expenditures, rebuilt military power. He needs the military support. But why would he then turn around and disrespect some of the military's leaders and say things that are divisive within his own camp? That is a very difficult thing for me to understand.
It's very hurtful for me. Now, if he was, I don't care what party he is, if a president says that, I don't care if he's a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, it doesn't matter. It is just not right. It doesn't matter what party he represents, because that is not right. So 观众们，刚刚我们讲到川普被提名诺贝尔和平奖，但是不会影响他选情，不会说哇拍拍手好棒，你赢了这个奖的话，你选情会影响 ？No， 影响他选情的是他过去这个礼拜被很多不同的这个管道证实，他羞辱退役军人。在美国，退役军人是受到尊重的，在全世界都应该受到尊重的。他羞辱，而且不止一次，让很多不同的这个内幕证明了，这不是一个政治手段。我们知道他会说这种话，我就不懂他为什么要说这种，因为这是很伤。不管他是哪一党哪一派的，身为一个领导人讲这种话，刚刚 Jim 就有讲 ，Jim 也说了，他说他为什么不思考再说话？但是川普这个人就是不经大脑说话。问题是说不经大脑说话，你只放炮就算了，但是他是真的有实权的人，所以这是很不公不义的事情。然后我们也能提到这个选举这个乱象，我不知道怎么解释，继续下去，讲这个退役军人，因为我们很多华人都经历过战争，我们知道战争的可怕。Sorry, Jim, I was telling our audiences, I'm trying to come up with a way to express why it's not about the race, it's not about election, it's just fundamentally it's very hurtful for our veterans, especially someone like Senator McCain. I don't know what's your take on it, but it relates to talking about him being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Whether he wins or not is not going to help the election, help this race.
I don't think it's relevant to the election.
That's right.
In
However,
most people that have seen the news in the last 24, 48 hours are perplexed by it. They're saying, what does this mean, and why are we talking about it now? It's really not meaningful.
However, his comments about the military, about our veterans, will affect. Right? So I don't know what kind of campaign he's running if he wants to win. Because like I said, we want balance, right? We always want to have a balance.
Well, there's another thing that's come up, though, within the last 3 or 4 days. The allegations that he said some hurtful things about the military while he was in Europe before. And he has vehemently denied making those comments. And meanwhile, a legitimate media would say, okay, he's denied it, forget it, get it off the front page. But some of the media keep churning the same thing and keep talking about the same allegations, even though that everyone around him has said no.
I've heard your justification many times. I can tell you exactly why that's not valid. If President Obama said this, President George Bush said this, the media would have let it go, because they don't have a history, a record of repetitively insulting the military. He did go on record of what he said about Senator John McCain. He did. He has said bad things about the military multiple times. For him to deny it now, and the fact is he got caught. He, on record, said, oh, Melania was in the U.S. had to go home. Well, the record shows she was there. He didn't want to go because it'll mess up his hair. I mean, we have to distinguish that, oh my God, the left, the Democrats keep attacking him and coming up with unfounded accusations. That's one thing. But it's another thing when everything is, oh, it's just all politics. He did say these things. He said them on multiple occasions. This what happened in Paris and in France is just one tiny bit. It's a history of it. It's like crying wolf. You can't believe this person anymore. And as the leader of the free world, but you know how I feel about him. Anyone but Trump. I'm going to repeat that. Anyone but Trump.
See, this discussion right now, Jimmy, you're making my point. When we started this conversation, you can't trust the government.
Perfect. It all ties in. I don't trust the government.
Put it all together.
Jim,
half an hour.
Jim, it doesn't matter who is in the White House, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. We all will 督促监督政府. We will all keep an eye on them. We'll question them. We have to keep them, do our duty as citizens to keep them alive. That's why America is great, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. If they don't do good, 4 years later we switch. And if Biden and this Harris doesn't do well, 4 years later they're out too. That's just how it works. And it's always been like this. And we cannot let anyone, not even someone like Trump, change the rules of the game.
No, you can't.
We cannot. We cannot.
And one of the things that you said, without saying it in precise words, is we have peaceful transfers of power. In the president, every 4 years. In Congress, it's every 2 years.
And if he doesn't, he already said he won't. He's going to question the results. What happens if he doesn't want to have peaceful transfer? Do you still support him? Would you?
Well, I don't know. It depends on what the facts are at the time. If we know the facts, we may not know all the facts. So I really don't want to speculate because there's 1,000 different scenarios that we could choose.
Jim, you're not a conspiracy theorist. I know you're not. I know that you are someone that's based on facts. You're logical. You have the credentials to prove. So let's hope in 2 months we're not talking about this in these terms, because it's very scary if no matter what he does, I'll just say, well, I didn't get the facts. It's the liberal media that made it up. Well, he didn't want to get out of the White House. He said the election's rigged, but he's in power. He's controlling all the resources. I mean,
the prevailing thought right now is if there are significant allegations of voter fraud or other irregularities, that just like what happened in the year 2000 between George Bush and Al Gore, it will go to the Supreme Court, and it will probably go there sooner rather than later. And who knows what that process will.
Are you not worried because you're for the people? Okay, he's asking the Department of Justice to defend his personal case. That already is against. He's throwing election events at the White House. I mean, there is just too many things that is not part of this country. That has never unprecedented. We cannot justify all of them, Jim. It is frustrating because I know you're a sensible person, but you know something that I forgot to bring up?
What's that?
You see how worked up I am? I just had a conversation with Asian American voters.
Yeah.
Because we talked about how important the voting is, right?
Yeah.
The way you're talking to me is you're peaceful, you're understanding, you're not trying to convince me, you're just stating your point. But for the Asian Americans, I was so worked up because they said this is what they're from Vietnam or China or whatever. Yeah. I support Trump no matter what. And understand where they're coming from because they're anti-communist. They escaped for communism for a better life. And Biden apparently rejected at the time when he was senator for Vietnamese refugees to come to the United States. Mm-hmm. Because we made the mess in Vietnam. We did.
Oh yeah, terrible.
So now, could I say, hey, it's a different time and place, when he said it at the time doesn't mean you know what I mean? I can justify it. But when I say that, I don't say that. I don't tell these Asian American voters, okay, I don't understand that. I cannot convince you, but we're trying to understand because there's so many Asian Americans that are diehard Trumpers.
Yeah. Well, in part because of that history, particularly Vietnamese. And I'm I'm very well aware of what I might call, this is my terminology now, the civil war that is going on within the Vietnamese American community. Those who were staunch South Vietnamese people who were overrun and who had to escape and who came here under very difficult circumstances. We were pleased to let them in, etc. We're stronger because of them. Those are the people that really do not want anything to do with Vietnam today. Then you have the other people who are practical business people, social people, that say, well, that was a long time ago, and now times are different, and now we should figure out how to come together again. On that, I don't know who is right. I understand both positions very well.
We talked about it a few weeks ago, that open trade and cultural exchange is how you really, the soft power is how you influence a country, right? That's what we're trying to do in China too. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. We're running out of time, Jim. Every time I talk to you, we always run out of time. Right. There's so many things that we need to touch on that can go so many layers that only you could provide this insight. I really love it.
What's interesting, Jimmy, every time we come together, there's new current events. And we put new current events on top. But meanwhile, the old current events are still there. And so instead of things going away, they accumulate. And life gets bigger and more complicated all the time. And so we're going to have to figure out how to prioritize our comments and set them in. But I don't mind moving around like we do, because everything is connected.
Yeah, it is.
And what we learn here will influence over there.
Like what you said earlier. And by the way, the Houston weather, because our audience, STV right now, we have a lot of local audiences. It was crazy. Earlier, 30 minutes ago when we started taping, it was bright sunlight, 90 degrees. And within the last 20 minutes, literally, the sun is gone. It's raining heavily, massive storm. I had to turn on the light. It got really dark here. Look at that. That's craziness. It's Houston. Houston weather is like bipolar.
Yeah, it is. But it's kind of like political attitudes, you know? They change by the minute.
That's it should, right? We should learn and process. We're not the same. When you're 20 or 40, you know, and when you're 50, right now, you think differently. When I was in college, I probably thought differently too. After I got my first paycheck, I'm supposed to become automatically Republican, right? Once they see the taxes taken out. I always remember that my college professor told me, oh, you think you're progressive? Wait till you get your first paycheck. Wait till you have a child. You're going to be automatic Republican.
No, I forget who it was. Some American statesman said one time that if you're not liberal when you're young, you don't have a heart. But if you're not conservative when you're older, you don't have a brain.
Yeah, I see that. I can see why people say that. The older we get, the more, you know, because I look at some of the younger generation, I'm like, wow, you guys are crazy. What is going on? What are you thinking, right? So thank you, Jim, so much for coming in and talk. I look forward to our next week. And stay safe out there. The virus is still a pandemic.
It's still there. It's going down. One of our successes is the number of cases may be going up because the testing's going up, but the number of hospitalizations and deaths are going down. So
I hope we get there.
I'll take good news anywhere I can get it.
I hope we get there. You stay safe, my friend.
Thank you, Jim.
谢谢各位收看，
Next week. Bye bye.
下周再见。